What did humans really do at night 300,000 years ago? Tonight, after sunset, you'll probably turn on a light without even noticing. Within seconds, your room will be bright, your phone screen will glow, and the darkness outside will barely matter. It feels completely normal. But for almost the entire history of humanity, this luxury did not exist. For hundreds of thousands of years, every human being who walked this planet experienced nights that were darker than most modern people can even imagine. Picture a world without electricity. No streetlights. No flashlights. No glowing windows in the distance. No screens lighting up the room. Once the sun disappeared below the horizon, darkness took control. Not the kind of darkness we know today, but a deep, overwhelming darkness that could hide danger only a few steps away. This was the reality for your ancestors. And it raises a fascinating question. What did humans actually do during all those long hours after sunset? Did they simply go to sleep and wait for morning? Did they sit quietly doing nothing, or was the night far more important than we have been led to believe? The answer may completely change the way you think about human history. Because the night was not just a period between 2 days. In many ways, it helped shape the human mind itself. To understand why, we need to travel back to a time long before cities, before agriculture, before written language, and even before civilization itself. For early humans, survival was a daily challenge. Every sunrise brought opportunities, but every sunset brought uncertainty. During the day, people could see approaching threats, find food, travel across the landscape, and communicate easily with members of their group. But once darkness arrived, everything changed. Humans were not designed to dominate the night. Compared to many predators, our night vision is poor. We cannot hear as well as wolves. We cannot smell danger like many animals can. In complete darkness, our ancestors were vulnerable. Lurking beyond their camps were creatures perfectly adapted for hunting after sunset. Large cats, hyenas, and other predators could move through the darkness with ease, while humans struggled to see what was only a few meters away. For thousands of generations, the arrival of night likely meant finding shelter, staying close to others, and avoiding unnecessary risks. Then one discovery changed everything. Fire. It is difficult to overstate how important fire was to human evolution. Fire provided warmth during cold nights. It made food safer and easier to digest. It offered protection from many dangerous animals. But perhaps its most revolutionary effect was something people rarely talk about. Fire gave humans extra time. Before controlled fire became common, useful activity largely ended when daylight disappeared. But a campfire created a small island of light in a sea of darkness. Suddenly, people could remain awake, interact with one another, and continue their lives long after sunset. For the first time in human history, the day became longer. That extra time may have changed our species forever. Imagine a group of early humans sitting around a fire thousands of years ago. The day's work is finished. The hunt is over. Food has been shared. The immediate dangers have faded into the darkness, beyond the flames. Now something remarkable happens. People begin to talk. Not about survival. Not about gathering food. Not about immediate problems. They begin telling stories. Stories about strange places. Stories about dangerous animals. Stories about brave hunters. Stories about ancestors and mysterious events that no one can fully explain. Night after night, these stories were shared, repeated, improved, and passed from one generation to the next. Long before books existed, stories were the libraries of humanity. They carried knowledge. They preserved history. They taught lessons. They explained the world. Around those fires, human imagination began to flourish. Some scientists believe these nighttime gatherings played a major role in developing cooperation, communication, and culture itself. A child listening beside a fire was not simply being entertained. That child was learning everything needed to survive and belong to the group. The campfire became the first classroom, the first theater, the first social network, the first place where ideas could spread beyond immediate experience. But storytelling was only one part of the ancient night. There was something else happening after darkness fell. Something so unusual that most people today would find it difficult to believe. For thousands of years, humans may have slept very differently from the way we sleep now. And the evidence for this hidden chapter of human history would remain unnoticed until researchers began uncovering clues buried in old journals, letters, and historical records. What they discovered challenged one of the most basic assumptions about sleep itself. Because the way you sleep tonight may be completely different from the way your ancestors slept for most of human history. Part 2. For centuries, historians overlooked a strange pattern hidden inside old books, diaries, personal letters, medical documents, and religious writings. The evidence was everywhere, yet almost nobody noticed its true meaning. Again and again, people mentioned something called the first sleep and the second sleep. At first, researchers assumed these were simply unusual expressions, but the more records they examined, the harder it became to ignore. People from different countries, different cultures, and different centuries were describing exactly the same thing. They would fall asleep shortly after nightfall, rest for several hours, wake naturally in the middle of the night, remain awake for a period of time, and then return to sleep until sunrise. What seemed unusual to modern readers was once completely normal. In fact, it may have been humanity's default sleep pattern for thousands of years. The more historians investigated, the stranger the picture became. References to this nightly awakening appeared across Europe, the Middle East, and other parts of the world. People wrote about it as casually as we might mention brushing our teeth. There was no indication that they considered it a problem. No concern. No anxiety. No complaints. Waking during the night was simply a natural part of being human. But what did people actually do during these quiet hours? The answer varied from person to person. Some spent time praying. Others reflected on dreams that were still fresh in their minds. Some spoke with family members. Others planned the next day's activities. Many simply sat in silence and allowed their thoughts to wander. To modern people, this may sound unusual. We live in a world that constantly demands our attention. Every moment of boredom can be filled with a screen. Every silence can be interrupted by a notification. Every pause can be occupied by endless streams of information. Ancient nights were different. When people woke during the middle of the night, there was often nothing competing for their attention. No glowing screens. No social media. No television. No endless news cycle. Just darkness, quiet, and the distant sounds of the natural world.